week on Africa Weekly. We focus on Ghana, where the government is promising prosperity to its people in an effort to dissuade them from leaving. We profile Cameroon's first ever blind lawyer who hopes to inspire others to grasp their own future. And we travel to Mozambique's Limpopo National Park, where recently recruited rangers are being put through their paces in an effort to combat poaching. But first, a summary of the stories that made the headlines this week. More than 100 mostly Tunisian migrants drowned when their overcrowded boat sank after leaving the Kerkennah Islands off the coast of Sfax province on Sunday. The passengers were rescued from the vessel after it ran into trouble late on Saturday evening. Survivors said the boat was packed with more than 180 people.
People were drowning. Those who could escape fled. Others drowned. We stayed there until almost 5 a.m. Then fishermen came to help us, and then the army arrived.
The government announced the sacking of officials accused of negligence over the shipwreck, the deadliest in the Mediterranean since February 2nd, when 90 people drowned off the coast of Libya. 25 people were wounded in clashes with security forces in the Malian capital Bamako on Saturday, 2 months ahead of presidential elections. The poll will see the country's 73-year-old premier face more than a dozen challengers. The government has denied opposition claims that live ammunition was used against the protesters. Madagascar's opposition continued to protest after divisions formed over the new Prime Minister, Christian Tse. Tse was appointed this week after the president was instructed by the Constitutional Court to end the long-running political crisis. The country has been rocked by protests, initially called against new electoral laws, which then snowballed into demands for the president to step down. But the new Prime Minister has vowed to push ahead with inclusive elections. Thousands of Zimbabwean opposition supporters took to the streets on Tuesday to call for electoral reforms to prevent fraud and voter intimidation ahead of presidential elections on July 30th.
We are not going to have a repeat of 2013, where President Tsvangirai won the election but was rigged. This election will not be rigged. We are prepared to do whatever is necessary.
And the following day, the ruling ZANU-PF party came out in a show of support for President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Zimbabwe's next polls will be the first since the fall of longtime ruler Robert Mugabe, who was forced to step down following a brief military takeover in November. Burundi's President Pierre Nkurunziza has announced that he will not run for another term. His announcement came shortly after he signed into law a new constitution that could theoretically enable him to rule until 2034.
Ghana is predicted to have the fastest rate of economic growth in the world this year, but many still look to North Africa and beyond for prosperity. Here in Sunyani, a new information centre has been set up to dissuade them.
We have documentaries, pictures of what transpired there. We use all those things to educate them and to tell them that it is not easy, even in Libya, let alone even getting to Europe, it is still not easy as they think.
Horror stories, though, don't put off people from attempting the treacherous journey across the desert. Ernest, a car mechanic in Dorma, spent 20 years in Libya and wants to go back, despite the dangers.
Tell us, dangerous. But dangerous here in Ghana is the same dangerous. Because you don't work. Why you stay here? I have children and child and my mother and family. But I know the danger. But you go there because you don't go, where is the money or where is the work?
Albert graduated 5 years ago and hasn't been able to land a steady job. Like his own father and brother, who were also in Libya, he's saving up to make the journey north.
If you know that you are from poor background, the only thing you could do is to be there so that you can change the family, you can change yourself. If only you don't die or you don't draw in water.
Ghana's government recently launched a program to get 100,000 young people into work. Like many of his friends, Bismarck has already applied.
It's a program for the graduates, and the maximum
this pay you are going to earn is 700 Ghana cedi. I think that one is the best approach for the government to sustain the unemployment situation in Ghana for a while.
President Akufo-Addo has said it's time to prove to the world that Ghana and Africa can grow without foreign aid. But first, he'll have to convince all his people to stay.
Janvier lost his sight at the age of 3. Now 37, he recently graduated from Douala Law School and is a proud member of Cameroon's Bar Association, pleading cases in the country's courts.
I was determined to become a lawyer, and it has been my passion until today. I have been blind since I was 3 years old, but my disability has not been a fatality for me.
Every morning, Janvier sets off for the courthouse with his computer and cane, winding his way through the crowded streets with relative ease. But his journey to become a lawyer has been far from simple, and now he wants to use his hard-won position to help others with disabilities.
The rights of people with disabilities in Cameroon is a problem that needs to be addressed. I believe that by becoming a lawyer, I can be at the forefront in defending the rights of vulnerable people, specifically people with disabilities.
Janvier's blindness can pose problems when defending cases, for example when last-minute documents are submitted to the court. To get around such obstacles, he set out to learn legal texts by heart.
He is very useful for our firm because this way of being able to master the text is very important. Even at the penal level, when you talk about a text on adultery or the excessive demand of a dowry, he will explain it to you clearly and precisely.
As Cameroon's first blind lawyer, Janvier plans to open up his own practice in the future and hopes to inspire other disabled people to follow their career dreams.
These recently recruited rangers are being put through their paces in Mozambique's Limpopo National Park. They will help spearhead efforts to combat poaching on the border with South Africa, where wildlife regularly crosses from Kruger National Park. Poachers often use villages on the Mozambique side as bases for their operations.
Recently, we seized a high-caliber weapon, but the 3 poachers managed to escape. Only 7 kilometers away from the village of Mavotse, which is in the reserve.
To combat poaching and increase conservation efforts, local populations are gradually being displaced along the reserve's borders. 3 communities have already moved, 5 more will follow. Next on the list is Bingo Village, with authorities promising residents a better quality of life outside the park.
We are going to improve. Why? Because where we are now, there is no building. When people pass through the school, the children start to look at them.
A 60-kilometer-long barrier separates the heart of the park from the surrounding area to stop wild animals from wandering too close to nearby villages. Elephants and buffaloes can trample crops, while lions can attack livestock. More than 200 brick houses are being built in this buffer zone as part of efforts to relocate the Bingo community.
This project aims to limit conflict between humans and animals, but it will also open up the park to tourists and encourage the development of our country.
The effects of poaching and the presence of locals mean that animal sightings are rare here, but poaching is going down. In 2017, only 2 elephants were killed in the park, compared to 16 2 years earlier.
Nigerian rapper Falz's latest release, This Is Nigeria, inspired by Childish Gambino's This Is America, gained nearly 3 million YouTube views in less than a week. The track offers an uncompromising and rare portrayal of the country's problems, with the video seeing Falz wander around a huge warehouse, bare-chested, as a series of violent scenes unfurl. Falz hopes its popularity will spur the youth to stand up for change. Next week, we take you to South Africa to meet the DIY diamond miners emerging from the shadows. That's all from us at Africa Weekly. Until next week.